is Governor Bobber. I like good day, doctors.
George Allen here. Good day, doctors.
Go!
You're watching Dr. Politics.
They're Dr. Politics. He's the one to see. Breaking down the news with sharp analysis. From Congress halls to campaign trails, he tells the truth when all else fails. They're Dr. Politics. Dr. Politics. Exposing the spin, the lies and tricks. Dr. Politics. Dr. Politics. He calls it straight, no politics as usual. Love from backroom deals to primetime fights. He sheds some light and sets things right. Debates, elections, policy. He cuts through all the DC sleaze. Oh, Dr. Politics. He's got the facts. Dr. Politics. No holding back. Dr. Politics. Go away. Dr. Politics, he's got the facts. Dr. Politics, no holding back. Dr. Politics.
All right. I think we're live.
All righty.
I keep getting this weird message from Facebook. Anyway, so it must be a different page. I don't know. All right. Anyway, welcome to Dr. Politics and the Political Architect Show. Where this is the Don and Dave show tonight.
Yeah.
I almost feel like I should send Dwight a message, but I don't know. Anyway, so happy Thanksgiving, everybody. Hope you had a great Thanksgiving yesterday and are enjoying the week. It gets to be kind of a quiet week towards the end here when you hit Thanksgiving week.
Well, and Black Friday. I guess everybody's out shopping.
Yeah. No, I mean, so I just before we really get started on the news, I just have to say, so I went to the dentist on Wednesday morning, and so I live in Gaithersburg. I got to drive to Bethesda. I like the early morning appointments. I just don't like the traffic. But
Yeah.
I just want to get my dental appointments out of the way. Okay. And it's like it was really nice because the traffic was lighter. I think people had already left town or were in the process of it. And so 270 was relatively light. I'm thinking like, this is the thing. It's like if you're gonna have a doctor's appointment and you need to get somewhere, do it like just before the major holiday when people have left town. That'd be nice. But yeah, and you just mentioned Black Friday. So we have Black Friday today. We've got Cyber Monday next week. I don't know, Dave. Do you do much shopping?
No, I would never get involved in that mess. I once did a little work at a retail place, and it was just a disaster. It was such enormous crowds. I never saw such crowds. I mean, maybe at a huge sporting event, but yeah, you couldn't pay me to stand in line at 5 a.m. I just can't see it. I don't know, how early do you think people will get in line at Kohl's or something?
Okay, so look, I am a person who has done this in the past, but Black Friday has changed a great deal. So when my kids were younger, when I would rouse them out of bed. We'd like, okay, here are the deals we want to go for, like Best Buy or whatever.
Yeah.
Get up in the morning and we'd arrive, and it's usually generally pretty cold in November, especially early in the morning when when it's dark out like that. And so we'd position them at couple of different places, and and to get in line. And so we'd get in line probably about 5 a.m. and there'd already be a ton of people there, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And you're like, how is this going to work? I think we kind of try to adjust our strategy to try to figure out what stores are likely to be less crowded. So like Best Buy, they have those doorbuster type of things like that. And what you wind up with is that, they basically have 10, maybe 10 of the item, right? And
Yeah.
you're like way back in line. It's like you're not gonna get the stuff you want,
Yeah.
generally. So we kind of learned that after a while, after kind of, freezing our rear ends off year after year. But you compare that to now, I don't even remember the last time I stood in line for anything like that in the morning, because we've shifted a lot to online Black Friday.
Yeah.
Right? Amazon, Amazon does 2 Prime days a year, which are a little bit like, they're kind of like Black Friday. And a lot of times with Amazon, they start their Black Friday sales a couple weeks earlier than Black Friday anyway. So Black Friday's turned not from a single day. In a lot of cases, it's turned into 2 weeks or a month.
Yeah.
Combine that, Cyber Monday turned into like Cyber Week. So
It's like election day.
yeah, yeah.
Oh, this is the next, couple months.
You're right. You're right. So, all I have to do is just sit here, and, by the computer and like, okay, let me look and see if there's anything interesting, and if it is, drop it in my cart and do it. Unless they say I have to physically get something, I'm staying home. I mean, my wife was, she's like, oh, well, we should get this. And, she's been dropping stuff in the cart, for the last couple of days. Not huge amounts of money or anything like this, but it's like, some pretty good deals. We'll see if it's what we want when we get it. If not, Amazon's great because they basically take back everything you buy. If it doesn't work. So, it
Sounds good.
but so, and we don't really need a lot of stuff. I hate, we accumulate a lot of stuff. We don't need all the stuff we get.
Yeah.
Most of my spending so far on Black Friday has been on gift cards, stuff for restaurants and things like that, places that we will go where they give you a discount or they give you the bonus card. And I'm like, yeah, we're going to go there anyway. And so I'll go ahead and buy that.
So what's the incentive in that case? The gift card, it counts as more if you buy the gift card, or?
So for example, okay, so there's a gift card that has never been offered as far as I know. I don't know if you know this place called Mission Barbecue.
I do. Yeah. There's
Okay,
one.
so we like it. It's pretty good.
Yeah.
It's very patriotic. At noon every day for lunch, you stand up and you listen to the national anthem and everything like that, and it's a big deal. But usually they give you, on your birthday, they'll give you a free sandwich. Some, this time of year they say come on in and you get a free side or whatever, or a dessert or whatever. But that's about the extent of their discounts for the year, unless you're a military first responder, which they do Veterans Day and some other things. Mission Barbecue, $50, $10 bonus card, good in the month of January. This is a very common tactic. California Tortilla, which is a local, Mexican, restaurant kind of thing like that. $25, 2 coupons for 2 bowls of burritos, good in January. Okay. And that's about $10 or $11. So you spend 25, you're getting about 20. Now I think they're surely hoping that you don't use the bonus cards. That's why, and they give them like a 30-day, window. So he's like, you have to actually really go over there to capitalize on it. But I think they play on the psychology of people saying, oh, we get this bonus, let's go and do that. Silver Diner is doing, I think for $50, you get an extra $10 and you get a Silver Diner mug. Or for $40, you get the $10 and you don't get the mug. This is so that's what happens, is that in essence, you get a little extra free food, to go. My favorite deal generally has been a place called Cafe Rio. There's a restaurant started out in Utah, and they've got a few locations. I got some in Virginia, but they have several in Maryland as well.
Yeah.
And on Black Friday, and actually even on one time, usually in October, you buy $25 worth of gift cards. Every 25, you get a $10 gift card, bonus card. But that bonus card never expires, unlike the other guys.
Yeah.
And then you add in their rewards program, and you're like, this is like you're getting like an 80% bonus if you
Yeah.
play if you play your cards right and use their rewards program, and they're when they say, oh, you get like 3 points on your purchase or 4 points on your purchase, you can parlay that into a lot of value and extra food. So that's basically the long rundown of how it works. There's stores, there are places that don't do it. Panda Express is doing 20% off if you buy 3 gift cards or more worth $30. So
Yeah. I think that's good. Yeah. I don't know if you have a preference. You'd mentioned Silver Niner. For me, my problem with Silver Niner, I know this will digress into a food show. For me, the problem is Silver Niner, the iced tea. I think it's sitting too long, and I don't like that. For me, if the iced tea isn't good, that's a real drawback. If you go to Denny's, the Denny's I go to in Fairfax, they're changing the tea, and it's good. It's usually always fresh. But when I go to the Silver Diner, it's almost never fresh. And for me, I just can't. I don't even drink tea there. I'll just get a Coke then. So I don't even drink tea when I go to Silver Diner. But
see, that's the thing. I mean, with these different restaurants, I mean, we'll make this the last thing before we move on, is that it's these little things that they do that can turn off a patron, right, and send
yeah,
them to some other place, and they don't even realize, what they're doing. I'm actually not shy about complaining about things to the restaurants when something doesn't go right, because it's just
yeah,
like, part of that is just like, look, you need to kind of fix this, because if I'm seeing this, there are others who probably are that are just not bothering to tell you, but you're going to lose business in the long run if you just don't do a better job. Yeah, I mean, keeping iced tea fresh, just other things like that, it can make all the difference in the world. So,
I agree.
all right.
Yeah, and that may seem like a small thing, but for me, that's kind of a big part of even of the meal because if the tea, what you're drinking is not very good, it really doesn't help.
Yeah, if you don't enjoy if that's what you pair with your meal and doesn't go good,
Yeah,
you don't want to do it, right?
yeah, that's true.
Okay, all right, enough of the food show.
I got to talk about Diet Coke at Costco and the cost. I'm just joking.
Yeah, well, okay, so I'll throw one more thing out here,
Oh,
just in relation to just as an information point for people, for podcasts. So there's a podcast, called Acquired,
mm,
and they only come out maybe once a month. I don't even know if it's that often, maybe a little bit less than that. And the podcast can go anywhere from 2 to 4 hours.
oh wow. Yeah, I
But
couldn't stand for that.
but that's why I listen to it in the car. So it's kind of take it piecemeal.
Yeah.
But it's a fascinating breakdown of a business. Basically, what they do is they take one business and they break it down and give you the history from start to finish. So
Okay.
when you just said Diet Coke, this last episode that just aired about a week ago was on the Coca-Cola Company,
Mhm.
and all the intricacies of how it started, and the founders, and the formula, and the chairman, and all these kinds of things, the disaster of New Coke, you know versus the success of Diet Coke, etc. So it's I like business, so I thought, this is it's not yeah, I can't listen to that in one sitting, but I can
Yeah.
listen to it in bits and pieces. And these two guys are good. The two guys who run this podcast are really, really good. So they, you virtually, they just take a major corporation and just break the whole thing down. It's amazing.
It's good.
And
Yeah.
and that's why they only do it every few weeks or whatever, because it takes them probably that long to read and to study and to kind of formulate the ideas of how to create the podcast from beginning to end, to give you a history of a
Yeah.
company. So, yeah, I mean, I learn a lot. I'm not sure I retain a lot, but I learn a lot.
Well,
Yeah, but
it's interesting that the guy who started Starbucks, um, Schultz, I think was his last
Howard
name.
Schultz.
I have his book, and I don't know if I ever totally, maybe I put it down, didn't pick it up, but it was interesting. But it still was interesting in terms of the reasoning behind it and how Starbucks became so big. Um, and Dave Thomas, the Wendy's founder, I read his book, and Dave Thomas talked about, and I didn't realize, and I guess I should have realized this, that one of the most important things in a restaurant, cleanliness. And I didn't think about it so much until Trump talked about the maxim his father told him, look at the doors. If the door looks dirty, you can imagine what the kitchen's like. But it reminded me of Dave Thomas's view that it's got to be clean. And that's going to be the most important thing to attract people, whether they're going to come into your restaurant or come back. So it's interesting that that sort of item that may seem obvious, that sort of feature, maybe isn't always that obvious, but that's why they constantly have to keep clean. He had a program that's called Operation Sparkle. And in all the stores, you had protocols in place to make sure that you're keeping it always clean. So
I think, I think you can tell the restaurants that are serious about that type of thing, though. I mean, either you can eyeball and see the cleanliness, or in some locations, that on the wall there's that little checklist. There's a sheet that says "last cleaned at," and somebody's got a sign on that, and stuff like that. Because nobody wants to walk into a dirty restroom, kind of a thing like that. A restaurant. It does reflect on the restaurant too.
Yeah, and the last thing about it, just while we think about it, what kept me away is I used to go to this place, and maybe I shouldn't mention the name. It's not a chain, big chain, but I used to go there. It was a Mexican place, but it was a really good deal on a lunch special, good Mexican food. Well, I kind of knew going in, it's not the cleanest place in the world, but I was willing to overlook it. But I found a hair once in my food, and I didn't go back. But I noticed the other day that they're gone, and it's not only under new management, it's like a new restaurant, still a Mexican restaurant, but it's been taken over by someone else. So part of me thinks maybe I should give it a try, because when you have new management in there, they may start cleaning the place up. But I guess I should have known it's not the cleanest place, but I still would go. But when I found the hair, that was the straw that broke the camel's back.
That would be it for me.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, I know. Yeah, not after that.
Enough said on that.
Yeah.
All right. Okay, so let's talk about a few things in the news, just internationally, real quickly. So there's kind of a framework, I guess, if you want to say, of this whole peace deal for Russia, Ukraine, to end their conflict. But it seems to be that it's more something that is more favorable to Putin than it is to Ukraine, and so it's I think for a lot of conservatives is not something that we would have we think is the right way for them to go. Trump, I think, he wants to end this thing, right? I mean, he swore that he would get this thing done in a few days or whatever if he got reelected, and obviously that didn't happen. And I know, we've seen his frustration at different points in time about how this has continued to slog on. But yeah, I don't see why Ukraine has got to start surrendering places to Russia to give Putin the upper hand. That leaves just a bad taste in my mouth. But I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think any deal will be generally favorable to Putin, but at the same time, I really find it distasteful. Obviously, if they have to give up land they didn't even lose,
right?
That I think it goes too far. I don't know, but the other problem Zelensky has is pressure at home. I think politically. He's kind of wearing out his welcome, maybe, and there's talk of scandal issue, although I think the country's had a history sort of a corruption. But I'm certainly sympathetic to Ukraine. At the same time, I also understand Trump's desire to end it. The ironic thing here is the reason that Putin sort of has an edge, well, the country's bigger and more resources, but he doesn't really care about lives lost, even of his own people. He's like a psychopath. He doesn't care. And I often thought Trump cares more about Russian soldiers and Russian lives than Putin. And that's sort of one of the reasons Putin may have leg up, because other than political pressure, or if he could be overthrown, I think he's heartless in the sense that, if a million Russians die, a million Russians die. I don't know if it's that high, but you got a high death toll.
Well,
And
we don't, yeah, because I mean, and it's hard to tell exactly what the casualty rate has been, to try to get figures. These wars are very difficult because there's a lot of propaganda that goes on, and a lot of times they hide things, and you don't really know, and you know I guess it's up to one side or the other to count the dead bodies and whatnot and the wounded and try to report them in. But I don't think there's a real accurate way of doing that. But you know how little Putin cares about his own people when he empties out the prisons,
yeah,
and he's basically throwing people out there
and North
just
Koreans too. North
yeah,
Korea.
right. He gets the North Koreans and he
Yeah,
got them to go out there and do his dirty work as well.
yeah,
Yeah, a human life means nothing to Putin at
yeah,
all.
yeah,
That which is really sad to see. And I just it's unfortunate that more politicians and others don't see that this is the case. I mean, it you know you do have those other countries, they're concerned, right? The
mm,
other they're thinking like, okay, look, if Ukraine signs off on an agreement that's favorable to Putin, you know, we're in trouble. Who knows what Putin will do next? I still think, in the back of my mind that his overarching goal is that he wants to reassemble the former Soviet Union as much as
yeah,
possible, right?
yeah,
And so, if you were part of that Soviet bloc before,
mhm,
uh, and you're not aligned with Putin right now, you're a target. You could be right on. It could be the next one once he gets Ukraine. Though on the other hand, it's taken him, it's been almost 4 years or
yeah.
whatever. I think when we come up in February. So this has been a long one. I don't know how many times Putin wants to get into long conflicts because there's no way that Putin thought that he was going to still be dealing with this at this point in time. I am convinced that he thought that Ukraine is a pushover. They took over Crimea fairly easily, and he thought he could just steamroll over the rest of it. And Ukraine has been extremely resilient. It's unfortunate for all the lives that were lost, all the damage that has been done to that country, but they have just done an amazing job of holding up as small as they are against Putin. They have just
Yeah.
withstood this, and thanks to those members of the NATO alliance. They haven't provided troops, but they have provided money and materiel, just like the United States, and that has helped a great deal.
Oh yeah, the Ukrainians have fought valiantly and great, and I do wish that we had gotten them more aid early on, and Biden had done a better job on that. Um, Especially the some of the fighter planes they're looking for, um, and missiles and stuff. But I also understand Trump's desire to try to find a decent end and probably the best deal Ukraine can get. But at any rate, it would be very much sort of lopsided in Putin's favor. But you don't want a total surrender either. So I don't support that either. So I don't know what's the answer because I think Putin's just going to keep bearing down until he gets the best deal he can get. But I do think, well, I take it back. I do think we have an answer, and that is through economic sanctions, just crush them, cut off all their oil, and punish people that want to buy their oil. It just seems to me we can, and even Europe, they're still buying a lot of their oil. It just seems to me that the only way to really stop them is economic pressure, isolate them economically, and that could help bring them down, bring Putin down. But other than that, I mean, I don't think militarily Ukraine's going to defeat Russia. That I don't think is going to happen.
Right. Yeah. And right. And I think economic pressure is the way to go. I mean, and unfortunately, despite the fact that we have imposed, sanctions, they're kind of leaky sanctions because you
Yeah,
have India and China. They're
yeah,
like, oh yeah, we'll buy your oil,
yeah, yeah,
and we'll give you X amount of dollars per barrel. So it does keep some cash flowing. I mean, if
yeah,
you cut off their cash flow, and that begins to affect them, and they have definitely, they've been affected to a certain degree. But as long as the oil money keeps coming in for them, they can keep doing this stuff. They can keep buying weapons and doing, and throwing people out there. So we haven't been able to exert the kind of pressure economically that we thought we could because other countries have stepped into the breach and said, "Oh no, we need your oil, so we'll buy your oil and we'll just get it on the cheap and we'll be happy." So
Yeah. Mhm.
so we have these other countries that are in essence propping Russia up for the war at this
Yeah.
point.
Cut off their oil and their vodka. I know people like their
Yeah.
vodka. You can't cut them off. But
Yeah,
that's
that would do it.
yeah, that's the only thing I can think of. But however, I mean, if Trump ends up getting the Ukraine deal and Gaza and he secured the border, wouldn't that be enough for people to say, okay, you had a successful first part of your first term? But it's interesting that uh, Trump's approval rating continues to drop, and I sort of understand, I sort of don't, because I think he's doing what he can on. He's made um, key victories with Gaza, with the border, and maybe with Russia, maybe not. And inflation's come down, but now people are talking more and more about an affordability crisis. And I agree that it exists, but I don't know why Trump gets so much of the blame for that. When we're not at the Biden, what was the cumulative inflation of Biden's 4 years? Like 19%, something like that.
Yeah,
Some,
I mean, so and the average for his 4 years was 5.1.
yeah. And
Yeah.
so we're not at that now. Even with tariffs and all, we're still about 3%. Not quite 3%. So, but Trump and the Republicans are taking a real hit. And I wrote a column recently on, we need another Jack Kemp. You need another apostle of economic growth, supply side, free markets to counter the Mandamis and the others that who push socialism, which socialism has never made anything affordable. And it's not going to make anything affordable. So I just think that Republicans, and this is going off maybe in a different direction, but they got to do a better job in terms of explaining the message and the message of freedom, free markets, for the most part, lower tariffs, deregulation, and economic growth being the answer to all the problems of affordability. And a good example is we had drill baby drill because you want more oil to reduce the price of gas. Same thing with housing. You got to build more and not rent control, not subsidizing people's rent and stuff, not helping with down payment. None of that. Build more housing to boost your supply. So it just seems from a message standpoint, we're out to lunch, or we don't really. It doesn't seem like we're really counteracting the left, and that's why they're winning a lot of elections. Let's hope and pray they don't win in Tennessee next Tuesday. But you can't beat a message without a message. You can't beat. I mean, you should, in a rational world, be able to defeat a socialist without having an alternative. But these days, you got to have the alternative. You've got to say, no, free markets work, not socialism. So I think there are messaging issues that we're coming into the new year with.
Yeah, no, I agree with that, and I think Trump has kind of had this misstep because he kind of scoffed at this whole affordability thing, right?
Yeah.
That the Democrats were using, didn't realize how powerful that is. And you just have to, remember it really is the economy, and it's how people feel about things.
Yeah.
The stock market may be near all-time highs. Interest rates are slowly coming down, things like that. But the cumulative effect of even 3% inflation does eat away, and we're seeing how jobs, there've been a lot of layoffs announced by major corporations. They're making a lot of cutbacks, in part due to artificial intelligence, that they can use that more than they need real people. And so there are things out there on the horizon that the Republicans need to realize now. And I think there are some Republicans that understand that. And you can see how Trump has pivoted on the affordability issue. The problem is that his ability to actually make anything more affordable is really limited, right?
Yeah.
As president.
Yeah.
I mean, you can't wave a magic wand and say, I want 2% inflation, I want this, that, and the other.
Or even building things. That's going to be, you still get into local governments and your zoning.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. He can't do much about that, but the Democrats have just been more effective at this affordability. I mean, I think Spanberger used that to pretty good effect in Virginia, and she got a little extra tailwind, I think, because of the shutdown. I
Yeah.
mean, I think I don't have a problem with the Republicans, holding firm on the shutdown in the one sense, but when you've got elections, you better be careful because the Democrats will turn that around just like they did,
Yeah.
and winning races that they probably wouldn't have won otherwise in some of the
Yeah.
sectors. I mean, Spanberger probably would have beaten Sears more or less anyway, but
Yeah.
you know, but Jason Miyares, I mean, to lose to Jay Jones or something like that. I
Yeah.
mean, you know,
Yeah.
lieutenant governor's race in Virginia too. I don't know that would have gone the same way if without the shutdown and some other issues. Spanberger to me didn't really have coattails, but New Jersey, that race, was far worse for the Republicans than it should have been.
Yeah.
And you just mentioned Tennessee, which I know you wrote a column about. It's like
Yeah.
this the Republicans have held the seat since what, 1983?
Yeah. They
So
should. The Republican Van Epps should win, but it's a matter of turnout. And if we do in Virginia, if we have the same situation where Republicans and conservatives don't turn out, then maybe it's going to be dicey. So they've got to turn out. Um, so I don't know. I think the Republicans will win because the Democrats are a really bad candidate, and more has come out about her. Afton Ben. The defund the police support, which she's in favor of. Apparently, she represents Nashville in the state house, but she doesn't like Nashville. She doesn't like country music. Um, she was given an opportunity to backtrack from the defund the police, but she didn't do it on MS Now. But she didn't do it, and then she made it worse for herself by saying, I'm going to talk about affordability, which seems to be a big issue now. So does she believe it's a big issue, or she's going to talk about it because people think it is a big issue? So really a bad candidate. But who knows? I mean, I didn't think Jay Jones could win in Virginia, and he did. So it's just about turnout. And Trump's not on the ballot, so we still have to bring in the Trump folks and bring in our base. So we'll see what happens. But you can't count on things anymore. You can't just assume that we'll win such a red district. We should, but we'll see if we
yeah.
turn out.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just and a lot of it will go back to messaging turnout. I mean, it's going to be turnout. It's going to be messaging, and
Yeah.
Republicans have had a problem for as far as long as I can ever remember on getting the message out. In a lot of cases, they stumble when they don't need to be. They have a strong position, but the messaging just gets all mixed up, and and the voters don't really know what's going on there. So yeah, I mean, if somehow this was it Afton Ben, right? If she
Yes.
if she wins, I mean, that's another problem because Republicans just don't have really seats to give.
Yeah. Yeah, that's right. And with Marjorie Taylor Greene leaving, which is another story there to talk about. But
Yeah, I don't know if you talked about it last week. We ought to talk about that. At least
yeah,
now.
no, we didn't mention that. I know it sounds sort of petty, but I think part of it is that she wanted to run for the Senate, and apparently Trump told her, "No, don't do it. You'll lose." And he's probably right. She would, but I think she may have taken that personally. Um, but the thing about her is, I was never necessarily a fan, but if you look at the conspiracy theories over the years she's pushed, I mean, she's a real wackadoodle. She really is. But and I have no personal animus towards her, but this change of heart and all just strikes me as coming from her. Yeah, I just think it's a little convenient and not really that sincere. I just don't know why she was so thin-skinned in a way. I mean, yeah, Trump criticized her. Trump said some bad things about her, but I don't know why that, I guess, deterred her to want to leave Congress or leave Washington or try to reform our politics. I don't know. It just seems odd. It doesn't seem to add up.
Yeah, it was. I mean, it happened so quickly too. But the vitriol had really reached a fever pitch. When you get called Marjorie Trader Green by the
Yeah.
president,
Yeah.
and things like this. Yeah, and so you may be right. I mean, thin skin. You have to realize if you're going to take on the president of the United States,
Yeah.
and he bucked him on the Epstein files, right?
Yeah.
That you better be ready to take everything, because he'll throw everything at you. I mean,
Yeah.
Trump has. I don't really think that Trump is really that interested in the Republican Party as a whole. He looks very transactionally at things and says, how does this help me do this?
Yeah.
And if that person's not really going to help me do this, then forget
Yeah.
about it. Look at the Epstein files. I mean, even though this has been around for a long time, the administration had been kind of holding that at bay. They've been trying, convincing Republicans not to vote on that. They had Mike Johnson not seating Gravalva, and all this stuff to sign the discharge petition. But then, he sees the writing on the wall, and then he goes back and he says, "I encourage you to go ahead and vote
Yeah.
to
Yeah,
release the files."
Yeah, he saw which way I was going. But the thing is, it's going to be a lot of embarrassing stuff, but I don't think anything damning in a way. I don't think criminally so much, but it'll be embarrassing. For example, in the case of Larry Summers, he was buddies with Epstein, and now you're starting to realize how weird Summers was, because he was interested in this woman who happened to be the daughter of a CCP, like finance minister. The thing is, Larry Summers was married to another woman at the time, but he's talking about Epstein, about how to seduce this woman. And it's just, you read that, it was in the Wall Street Journal, I think, and then you'll want to take a shower afterwards. I mean, it's like, oh my God, this is horrible. And so there's going to be a lot of embarrassing things about people, but Summers is a good example. But the one mystery I have about Epstein, this is the biggest one, and it's not so much about the crimes, so much about trafficking, the sex trafficking of the underage women. I mean, it's horrible and a crime, and I'm glad the guy's dead. But what's the mystery for me is how he made his money. Because the thing is, he didn't finish college. He apparently never had a company with more than like 5 employees. So how would he be worth, $100 million or 3 or 4, maybe more than that, $500 million? I don't get it. So I would, that for me is the real mystery. And I think it's through blackmail, but it's interesting who he may have blackmailed for his money. But that for me is the mystery.
Yeah, he's obviously a reprehensible human being.
Yeah,
So.
he is. Yeah, he was. Yeah,
he was. So yeah, and the thing too is that the Democrats, I mean, I think that there's a risk here. I mean, they're thinking that, okay, they're looking for something to nail Trump to the wall on.
yeah,
But the problem is that when you got a guy like Larry Summers, you already what you see here is that there's a huge potential that there are other liberals and Democrats that will get swept up in this as well. So that while you are so hell bent on getting Donald Trump, you will find out that some of your colleagues and buddies have done far worse things with Epstein, and that they ought to be in jail or something like that as well. And so that you may have opened up this Pandora's box that you probably probably would have been better off for them to remain closed. So there's still a fight in terms of what is the Justice Department really, are they going to release all the pages? Will there be some missing? How much redaction is going to be? So it's still going to be a while before they get to we start seeing seeing a lot more juicy stuff or whatever. But I'm hoping that the real peak of this has really been the fight over releasing the files. As time goes along, people get less interested on this. The Democrats can't use it as much of a message because other things are going to come into play anyway. And they may discover, like I said, they may discover like, oh, wait a minute, we got Senator so and so, Representative so and so, or another person like Larry Summers. Where we need to end this now, you know.
Yeah, but you know what? In a way, though, Summers going down, they kind of liked because Summers was part of one of the last of the centrist sort of Democrats.
True.
Economically, Larry Summers would tell you things that you and we'd probably agree with a lot of what he says because he's a moderate sort of Democrat. And so Elizabeth Warren was one of the ones that danced on his grave the other day. So they're kind of Summers. I think they're happy that he's gone, but others will come out, and I mean certainly Bill Clinton. Well, who knows what else will come about that? I think Trump wasn't trying to protect himself because he didn't do anything wrong, but I think he was just trying to protect a lot of people who are going to be kind of innocent, who are going to be caught up in this, who are going to be embarrassed, but they weren't involved with his crimes. And I don't know yet, but I'm willing to bet that Summers didn't know about I don't think Summers spent time on Epstein Island or anything like that. He was just friendly and liked Epstein, and so was chatting and respected Epstein's opinion. But I don't think he was involved in any of the crimes. So it's embarrassing, yes, but in a sense, and I don't really feel sorry for Summers, but in a sense, some people are going to get caught up in this, and it's a little unfair because they didn't commit any crimes. So I think that was maybe the concern of the Justice Department to hold this back. But I don't know. But that's just my guess.
Yeah, I mean, your guess is as good as mine at this point in time. I mean, it may be a while before we find out much, if anything at all.
For me, it's Bill Clinton, though. I do wonder how much he was involved.
Yeah.
In it. That would be serious because that would really go to tarnish his reputation, kind of. But I don't know. I don't know. But that's what I wonder. And the question is, the mystery is who Epstein blackmailed, where did he get his money? I think that's the other very telling thing. Because if he must have had some dirt on people, and that's the only way I think he could gotten the type of money that he had. So I don't know.
Yeah, you may be right about that.
Because let's face facts, I'm imagining you certainly employed more people at AIM than Epstein ever employed. And yet, for some reason, he's worth hundreds of millions of dollars. Well, maybe you're worth hundreds of millions of dollars.
Yeah, right.
You're living in Montgomery County, Maryland, and it probably isn't that like that's like the poverty rate in Montgomery County, I think.
Yeah, working for a nonprofit the way we ran it. Like, you don't get rich.
yeah, I understand. Yeah, I understand in the nonprofit world.
That's a whole nother bone. I believe just like how many nonprofit executives make gobs of money. I always felt that there ought to be a kind of a limit. It's like if you're working for a nonprofit in the greater good, I don't begrudge them taking a good salary. I just think there's an excess of what you get in salary and benefits. It's like, do you really need that? Or I mean, as a donor, if I see that, I'm just like, I'm not going to donate so that you have a driver,
Yeah. Well, a good example of that is, do you remember when we were young, we may have been teens or early adults, there was a case, I don't want to be wrong about this because I don't want to malign a group, but it was one of the major charities, whether it was United Way or something, but they had an executive that was making a lot of money and a lot of bonuses and stuff. And it was kind of a scandal because people thought, well, wait a minute, you're a charity and we're giving money to charity and you're paying your head, six figures, whatever. Now, the head was very important in terms of raising money so that you could make the argument that, but because you have someone good there at the charity, they're going to raise more money. So maybe it's worth it. But it's a gray area because, it's supposed to be helping out the needy. And, your top boss running everything was making, and this was back when we were young, when you said six figures, that was a lot of money.
Yeah. No, that was a huge United Way scandal.
Okay. Maybe that was.
So you had that right. Yeah. That was, and yet, despite the scandal, it didn't necessarily create a whole lot of reform.
Yeah.
It put the spotlight on United Way, and they probably made some changes, but there's still plenty of nonprofits on that are conservatives and liberals, as well as just the ones that are you know, Red Cross or whatever. I mean, because it
Yeah.
runs the gamut, right? It runs
Yeah.
nonprofits run the gamut, and that are still probably paying their people a lot of money, their top people, where the regular staff is getting average wages, but not great
Yeah.
wages. But
Well,
but more than anything, more than they need to live on.
well, yeah, that's true. And when I was in the nonprofit world working, I was never in the fundraising side, but the fundraising side is where a lot of people can make good money if you were good at
Right,
fundraising.
right. No,
And yeah, because that was one of the keys. And so you needed good fundraisers. And when I was at Leadership Institute, we had some really good fundraisers. I don't know what they made, but they probably did pretty good because they were so important. Um, I was always on the program side, so I never got into raising money. I did a little PAC fundraising. I did some raising of money, but for an organization, I was never in the we call it the development department.
right.
So,
Yeah,
yeah,
and that takes some special skill. If you're good, you're going to make good money
yeah,
because you are bringing in the money. You're kind of the rainmaker in that way, and so
yeah,
you need, every organization needs someone who can bring that money in. And if that means you got to pay them, six figures,
yeah,
whatever, low to mid six figures, or even whatever if they're bringing in far more than that than they're
yeah,
earning, then they're really paying off. A break even situation doesn't do you a whole lot of good, but
that's
you want them to bring in X above, how many X above what they're earning,
yeah,
and you know
mm,
we we've tried it at AIM. We tried it a few different times and trying to find these fundraisers, and people had worked for leadership or other organizations, or in the movement, but none of them panned out for us. It's like, we pay them pretty good money, more money than most of the rest of the staff was making, but
yeah,
they didn't bring in the money. It's
yeah,
like, so, and yet one of them went on to bigger fame and fortune afterwards.
yeah,
It's kind of funny when I look back. I'm like, wow, look at that. It's like, look how that person took, leapt from AIM and then wound up over here and is now like, kind of a top drawer person. They're not even doing development. They're actually leading an organization, or
yeah,
like that. I mean,
yeah.
Tucker Carlson, he was partner in crime for you know when they had when he first started off, and had, forming his news organization. uh it was the guy was what, Neil Patel,
Okay,
right? Well, Neil Patel worked for us, for AIM, for a little brief period of time, but we let him go because he was terrible.
okay,
At what he was doing, at what he's supposed to be doing,
yeah,
And I didn't realize it was that guy until I was at another event, and he
yeah,
happened to mention, he had a short stint at AIM and all this stuff, and I'm thinking like, son of a gun, how did we? It's like,
yeah,
he found his calling right later on,
yeah.
and
It happens.
yeah, you just never know. So
Yeah.
anyway, all right. Locally, we have another story here, and probably one of the last ones we'll get to today, um, which is the whole thing about the National Guard in DC, and
Yeah,
this
yeah.
and this terrible shooting that occurred. And so we still have one guardsman, I guess, in critical condition, and the other one died of her injuries. Sarah Beckstrom at age 20. Um,
Yeah, and
it's very
cruelly on Thanksgiving, cruelly to
yeah,
die. She was only 20, looked like a lovely young person. And the motive of the shooter, I guess we don't quite know whether it was a jihadi sort of thing or what. But he was an Afghan national, traveled all the way from Washington State, drove all the way here. And yeah, I didn't think there was much of a chance for her to survive because I think it was shot point blank, and then father, someone said even before it was announced she died that it was a mortal wound. So
Yeah. So now I understand that I guess the National Guardsmen are patrolling. They have some DC police with them because the
okay.
guardsmen are not. They're not carrying weapons
Oh,
in
okay.
DC, right? And so and these two were from West Virginia.
Yep.
So Governor Morrissey, I think, has come out and said something about the
Yeah.
prosecution of these. But yeah, there's going to be a lot. They have to try to sort out to figure out what motivated this person to commit this horrible act
Yeah.
against unarmed guardsmen. I mean, this is they. I guess I didn't really think about them being as much as sitting ducks as they were, but it's really quite unfortunate, for that, what's going on there. And, I don't know I don't know, if you have any thoughts about, does this call into question, Trump's policy on having the guard there? Is this a plus or a minus, because
Well,
he's trying to get them in other places in the country,
well, that's
immigration policy.
that's the spin from the I heard the other day that they shouldn't even have been there. That I guess DC's crime is coming down, and but the thing about it is that when you're in uniform, there's always a risk, even if you're just a guard and I shouldn't say just a guard, but if you're in the guard and it seems like a peaceful sort of situation, although DC is not particularly peaceful, um, you're still at risk. So there is going to be that. I mean, anybody in uniform could, nuts will be out there to shoot you. So
Yeah.
that'll be the sort of spin. I hope it does not deter Trump. I think the National Guard really has helped DC and possibly other places too. So I hope I hope the shooter doesn't win in the sense that we start pulling back with National Guard. But we'll have to also find out the motive and how he got here. He apparently did some work with the CIA, so I guess they vetted him. But then there are others that they let in that they didn't quite vet. So Trump wants to relook at that to see who all's here. And by the way, speaking of that, and I'll make this really quick because it's an interesting story. Speaking of people here sort of illegally or not, but there's a case in the New York Times front page story about a guy who is sympathetic, but the guy's here illegally, but he stole the name of someone else, of a guy in Minnesota by the name of Dan Kluver. And so this guy's parading around as Dan Kluver. And years later, the illegal alien Dan Kluver has broken some laws, not paid taxes, and the Minnesota Dan Kluver gets into legal trouble over this guy. I don't know if you saw the story, front page of the New York Times, but it's kind of sympathetic to the illegal alien. Oh, he's just trying to raise a family, he's working hard, and so I don't know if you saw that story, but I did want to mention that in terms of my disgrace of the week, or a disgrace is the New York Times for that. But
Yeah.
anyway, your thoughts on at least the DC shooting?
Yeah, no, like I said, I mean, I think this has been a terrible, horrible act. We don't know enough. We don't have enough information to really figure out. Since we don't know what the motivation was. The guy drove 40 hours from Washington State, as you alluded
Yeah.
to. And I don't know. I mean, what causes a person, to do this? But unfortunately, we have in our history, I mean, you do have these people that kind of get off their rocker, right? And they commit these horrendous acts of violence. And we never find out really what's happening there, with them, terms of what was the real reasoning, and who are, what who are they blaming, and what is the purpose of this? I don't know. There's no justification to take human life in this
Yeah.
case. I mean, there's just
Yeah.
that's kind of the bottom line for me. And
Yeah.
so this person should never see daylight again.
Oh,
uh,
right.
as far as I'm concerned. And while we're sitting here, I'm thinking, like, quick comment before we wrap up here, on Muriel Bowser not running for re-election. Any thoughts?
Yeah. I thought that for a Democrat, she wasn't bad. I think she realized there was a problem, certainly with crime. I think the problem rests more with the city council and the unions and all. But I thought she did a pretty good job, all things considered. Yeah, she wasn't like a Brandon Johnson or a Mandami or a Karen Bass or anything like that. But and she's young, so it's kind of odd to me why she. I mean, she's could be there for many more years. So I don't know all the reasons, but DC has had its share of bad mayors. I think she'd be on the side of maybe the better side of a better mayor. You and I still remember Marion Barry, and I think the worst of all the DC mayors, I think, was Sharon Pratt Kelly. I thought that she came in as the reformer, but I think she made it a good bit worse for DC. I don't think she was good at all. And then Vincent Gray and all the others that were just, yeah, not all that great. But I thought Bowser in that list was still above average, or probably better than most.
Yeah, yeah. I generally think the same thing too. Is that she was
Yeah.
one I was kind of surprised by the announcement because I kind of thought that she was going to be Marion Barry-ish in terms of length of service.
Yeah.
Because Mary used to say "Mayor for life." I mean, I think Bowser could have kept that office, that job for a long time had she wanted to, but I can also see that battling with her, with the council, battling, with Trump, this whole issue on the National Guard and all these other things. She just may have said, "I'm done. I can do other things." She's got a decent political resume now. She can parlay that into something else. She can be a talking head on MS Now or whatever. Uh, and be a political consultant and just without the headaches, but make good money, more money than she's making now, probably.
Yeah.
So
And think of the opposite end where you had Eleanor Holmes Norton, and who's been the DC delegate since you and I were young men. We were just like coming up in politics, and she was there. And oh my God, she's still around. And I think,
and
does she still want to run
she's
again?
not giving up.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, someone else, I guess, is trying to challenge her to tell her, you really need to retire. But
Yeah,
after all the years that she's been there, I mean, that's got to be since the '90s, right? At least since the '90s, I
yeah.
would think.
I swear, I think she's been holding out to say like, hoping that DC gets statehood, so she becomes a real congressperson kind of thing. She can actually do something, right? It's like, nope, you're not. Nope, you're just the shadow. It's not going to happen.
Well,
But
I remember her predecessor was Walter Fauntleroy. Remember him?
oh yeah,
We were kids when he was around. Well, if Democrats get the presidency and the Senate and they get rid of the filibuster, maybe they can make DC a state. They can do that for her, but I hope not.
yeah. I hope not too. All right. Well, we are near the end of our time that we want to stay within. So, David, what else do you have? Final thoughts.
Well, check out the Substack column, and I got my podcast going on. And Don, whenever you're ready to launch the Don and Dave podcast,
We really ought to do this.
but everything else is going good, and it's turning cold now, so I don't really like it. But what can I do? I can't complain. This is Virginia, Northern Virginia, DC weather. So, but anyway, hopefully the weekend's not too bad. I don't know, but
Yeah,
winter's coming. So, well.
yeah. I mean, I can live with the cold. I'm not crazy about it either. As long as like the snow and the ice delay their
Yeah,
arrival as long as
yeah,
possible, I'll
yeah.
be
I
fine.
agree. Yeah, I agree.
So yeah, and it's like next week I'm heading off to Utah to go see one of our young grandchildren who's about to turn 1, and
Oh,
that
good.
trip almost we weren't sure about the trip. We get a message from our son a few days ago, and he says, Noah's got foot and mouth disease, and so does his mother. So this has been something that's gone around the area. It's a very contagious disease, it lasts on the average, I guess, for 7 to 10 days or whatever. But if I'm thinking like we're like, do we want to travel if the kids, if this kid's got hand, foot, and mouth and could pass it on to us?
Yeah.
But my son has got some ulterior motive now because we'd already had planned this trip a while back, and apparently because his wife has missed some work time because of the hand, foot, and mouth thing, and so both he and his wife have to be at work on next Friday, and they don't have a sitter lined up. It's like you kind of it's like everybody's fine. You can come out and you can watch the baby.
Yeah. Okay,
Like,
good.
yeah, we spend with airfare and car and whatever. Go out and spend $1,000 or whatever it is that we spend, and we basically where a lot of the purposes is to babysit our grandson for like one day.
Yeah.
We are the most expensive. This is the most expensive babysitting job around. If you have to do this,
Yeah. But probably well worth it, I assume.
it
Well
is.
worth
Yeah, we won't. We don't. Yeah,
Yeah.
I can't argue about it. But it's just kind of one of those things that happens with him. So we will drop everything if we have to go out
Yeah.
there and see him.
Very
Uh,
good.
and so it's a lot easier to get to Utah, that part of Utah, than it is for us to go see our other grandchildren because they live in Evansville, Indiana, and I mean that requires a lot more time. Either a 700-mile drive, which I don't want to do anymore,
Yeah.
or most of the day traveling just to change, just because I've got to fly to Charlotte, then you got to wait, and then you got to fly in, and there's just limited flights,
Yeah.
to smaller airports. So yeah, really just a couple final thoughts. Really, it's just that Trump. This is where Trump makes me laugh. He's canceling all of Biden's executive orders that were signed by AutoPen.
Okay, good.
I don't know how many there were. I didn't look at the number.
Yeah.
It's kind of funny. It's like, that whole AutoPen thing. He'd made a big deal of it before, and now he's just saying like, yeah, if it was signed by AutoPen, my executive order says anything signed by AutoPen by Biden is gone.
Didn't he show the Saudi Arabian crown prince the auto pen?
I
Is even the tour show me? Yeah.
Yeah. He keeps poking at Biden too. I mean, Biden's been out of office for 10 months, 11 months, whatever, and it's like
Yeah.
he's still here fighting away. He's like, here's another Biden era thing we're getting rid of.
Well, I think Trump's toned it down just a bit, but I remember when he first got in, and even with Zelensky there, he talked about support. He says that was by a guy named Biden who made some horrible decisions. That's funny.
Yeah,
That's funny.
yeah. I mean, and with the economy, he's going to do what every other president has ever done. So when things aren't quite going your way, you still point to the previous guy.
Oh yeah,
And say, well, Obama did that for a long time with Bush.
Yep.
Well, and at least halfway through his term, he was still pointing to Bush.
Yeah,
like,
that's right.
No, not anymore. This is
Yeah, not anymore. You're right. You're right. It'll get old after a while. Correct. Yeah, it'll get
right.
old.
So, and then finally, just the since we're no longer minting pennies, it has become really interesting to see how retailers are what they're dealing with here now. It's like, so if you're out there and you got pennies, either go to your local retailer and use them and pay some of your bill in pennies if you're using cash and help replenish that. But it hadn't really. I mean, I'd been reading a few stories and stuff like that, but when I was up in Frederick the other day and we were at Costco and the lady ahead of me paid in cash, and she was getting change, and the cashier goes, it was some amount that required pennies, right, and change or whatever. They had none. This is Costco, right?
Yeah.
So they had no pennies up in Frederick, Maryland.
Yeah.
And he said, so the company policy there was to round down to the benefit of the customer, not round up, but round down.
Yeah.
And he was saying that I guess this was the company's line or policy. It's just that it was just better customer relations, better to do it that way. You don't get, I also thought too, for these other stores, is just like, as they start running out of pennies and we start getting used to this whole thing of like, you're going to have to round, the purchase if you're paying in cash. is that um, is is this something that is going to require a sheet of paper by the cash register so that the cashiers know, when it's this amount, like when it's 7 cents, it goes this way. When it's 6 cents, or something like that, because I don't believe in my heart that there are enough cashiers out there that understand how you round up or round down.
Yeah.
It's an indictment of the math and poor schooling,
Yeah.
but
Oh, yeah.
I just have a feeling that's like, they get something, they're like, so you've got $10.07. So you owe me 10.05, or do you owe me 10.10?
Yeah. Right.
I can just see confusion abound, and
Yeah.
customers are never going to be happy if it's in their disfavor, even though it is the standard practice of which way they're, in terms of which the amount should be based on rounding up or rounding down.
Yeah.
So,
But I would think there are still enough pennies in the circulation. Maybe I'm wrong, but I think everybody's got like a jar of pennies somewhere.
oh yeah, I know. But it did make me think. I don't know how many pennies I still have left in a jar, but
Yeah.
I may go and hand out some pennies. And I'm, let's do an experiment when we're in, if we're in a gas station or another store sometime, and see if that little jar, that little thing, that little dish that said "Give a penny, take a penny," are they
Yeah.
still there?
Yeah. I don't know. Yeah.
If there's a shortage of pennies,
Yeah.
there probably no pennies in the little "Give a penny, take a penny" thing
Yeah.
anymore.
Why not?
So yeah. I mean, but this, eventually they will disappear in total,
Yeah.
because because they just wind up like, under your couch in a jar, and they leave
Yeah.
circulation. And if they're no more being put into circulation, that forces retailers. I mean, you think about it, Costco. I mean, a huge retailer, the kind of business they do, they need all kinds of change.
Yeah.
And they require a huge volume of that. And if the banks don't have it, they just don't have it. So
Yeah.
anyway, all right. So we made it through.
Yep.
I think we did good here tonight. So
Yeah.
it's our post Thanksgiving week wrap up, or whatever we want to call it. Thank
Yep.
you for joining us today. Thank you, David, for all that you do.
All right. Thank you.
And yeah, we'll talk we'll talk between now and the new year about trying to figure out. I can squeeze in another podcast. That'll be a lot
Yeah.
of fun.
Yeah. We should.
we just figure out a good title and whatever. So anyway, everybody who's out there joining us and may see this later, hope you had a great Thanksgiving. Thanks for joining us tonight. And I think the entire crew will be back. Well, most of it. My appearance may be a little muddled because I'll be in Utah, but we'll see. We'll see what I can do. But I think the rest of you guys will be around. So until next week, we'll see you then.
See you guys later. Take care.
Right. And I'm not doing Masoni's.
Yeah.